Hello everyone and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Deacon had not meant to be there that afternoon. He told himself he was only going to drop off the paperwork for the new wine delivery, and maybe spend a few minutes with Taylor if she wasn't too busy. Recently, their friendship had been delicate and strange, part therapy, half desire. She made him laugh like no one else could, and for a man who had spent most of his life being judged, she had the extraordinary ability to see past his defenses. He parked his truck outside her office, with the late afternoon light slanting across the Forrester courtyard. The fountain's music blended with the distant hum of Beverly Hills traffic. He stood there for a time, clutching the folder and preparing what he would say. Something casual, not overly eager. Maybe he'd ask if she wanted to get some coffee later. No pressure, just two friends conversing. When he arrived, her door was half closed. He heard her voice first, soft, low, and full of warmth. It made him smile automatically. But then there was another voice, this time from a guy. Deeper and unfamiliar. The laughter that followed was light and intimate. He paused, his fingers tightening on the folder. "Taylor," he called softly, knocking once. There was a pause followed by muted activity. Before she could respond, he pushed open the door. The sight struck him as a physical blow. Taylor stood near her desk, her arms tightly wrapped around a man Deacon had never seen before. The embrace was not casual. It was a close, tender hug, the kind that lasted a little too long and said, "I've missed you." Deacon froze in the doorway. For a moment no one spoke. The air felt heavy, like the silence that exists between thunder and lightning. Taylor drew back slightly, startled, her eyes widening as she noticed him. "Deacon, hey. I didn't hear you enter." The guy turned around, still half smiling, obviously unconcerned about what his presence had just done. He appeared polished and confident, the type of man who would fit right into Taylor's world. I was just dropping this off," Deacon said, holding up the folder as if to explain everything. His voice was too audible in the small room. Taylor stepped forward, flustered. "This is Dr. Marcus Lang. He's an old acquaintance from my time in Switzerland. He's here for a conference." Marcus offered his hand with ease. "Nice to meet you, Deacon." Deacon didn't accept it. He nodded stiffly, his throat constricting. "Yeah, likewise." The moment was strained, awkward, and painful. Taylor, sensing the tension, motioned to the chair. "We were simply catching up." Marcus was. "I should go," Deacon said hastily, interrupting her. "I did not mean to interrupt." "Deacon, wait." But he was already at the door. He did not glance back. Outside, the sunlight had faded, leaving the sky a dismal gold and gray. Deacon stood beside his truck for a long time, staring at nothing. He felt dumb. Not jealous exactly, he had no right to be, but hollow, like if something inside him had softly burst open. He had known better than to hope. Taylor was brilliant, polite, and caring. His name was Deacon Sharp. The man with a record, the one everyone warned her about. Still, in those quiet moments after Rich had returned to Brooke, she'd tell him about her anxieties, her children, or her lonely nights, and he'd allowed himself to envision something more. Now, as the light faded from her office window, he understood how dumb he had been. He got in the vehicle, started the motor, and drove aimlessly through the city. Beverly Hills faded into West Hollywood, and finally into the quiet streets along the waterfront. He parked along the sea and watched the boats wobble in the reflection of the sodium lamps. He recalled all the times he'd sat in that office with Taylor, her gentle voice guiding him through the tangle of his own guilt and wrath. She told him he deserved happiness and that people could change. Perhaps she thought that for everyone except herself. His phone vibrated. A note from her. "Deacon, please do not abandon me. Let's discuss." He stared at it for a long time before shutting the device and putting it away. Taylor looked from her window as his pickup disappeared down the driveway. She felt a stab of guilt. She had not intended for him to see it. The hug with Marcus had been innocent, two former co-workers reconnecting after years apart, but she could see how it must have appeared. Deacon had been her buddy, perhaps more than that. There was something about him, he was unpredictable and honest in a way that most people are not. He did not hide his scars. That brought her comfort. However, she had recently seen that the border between professional and personal was blurring, which concerned her. Ridge had profoundly injured her, but she had not anticipated Deacon to fill that void. And yet, when he wasn't present, she found herself missing him. His wit, commitment, and unexpected sensitivity. She thought she had broken something that couldn't be fixed. Marcus continued to remain near the desk, keeping a close eye on her. "Are you okay, Tay?" She forced a slight smile. "Yeah." Marcus described the situation as complicated. "A friend." "Yes, a friend." She paused, then added softly, "Someone who has been through a lot." Marcus nodded with comprehension in his eyes. "Everyone needs someone, Taylor. Don't be too hard on yourself," but she already was. Deacon did not go home that night. He wound up in Il Giardino long after it had closed, sitting alone at the bar with the lights down. The scent of wine and wood polish permeated the air. He poured himself one drink, then another. He had promised Taylor he would not drink again. He glanced at the bottle, the contents reflecting light like ancient amber. He resisted for a time. But the anguish inside him felt too thick and too familiar. When the glass finally touched his lips, the burn was severe and cruel. "Here we go again," he said cruelly. He had already finished half of the bottle when the door opened and a soft voice shouted his name. "Deacon?" Taylor stood at the doorway, her face twisted between rage and sorrow. "What are you doing here?" he queried without meeting her gaze. "I could ask you the same question. You promised me, Deacon. You said you wouldn't go back down this road." He laughed without humor. "Yes, well, promises don't mean much when you're the guy no one believes in." She approached him, her voice breaking slightly. "You've earned that trust. You've worked extremely hard to change. Don't throw it away because of a single misunderstanding." He turned on her with raw pain in his eyes. "Taylor, you were in his arms. Do you suppose I imagined that?" Her expression relaxed. "It wasn't as you think. Marcus is a long-time acquaintance. That's all." He examined her for any signs of deception. There was none. Just honesty and something deeper, pity even. "That's worse," he admitted quietly, "because it means there's nothing between us to misunderstand." She was shaking her head. "Deacon." He stood up, wobbly yet proud. "You don't need to say it. I got it. You are Taylor Hayes. You save people. You listen to their problems, fix them, and send them out better than when they arrived. That is what I was, correct? A project." Her eyes welled up with tears. "You were never a project. So what was I?" The question remained unanswered. She finally murmured, "Someone I care about. Someone I wanted to help." He nodded slowly. "Exactly." He put down the drink and reached for his jacket. "You should leave, Taylor. You don't belong in places like this." "I'm not leaving you like this." "Yes, you do." His voice was firm and resigned. "Because if you stay, I will continue to believe there is a chance. And we both know there isn't." She remained motionless for a few moments. Then with tears in her eyes she said, "You deserve someone who believes in you in the same way you believe in everyone else." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe someday." As she turned to depart, the sound of her footfall resonated like fading raindrops. The next morning Deacon stood outside the restaurant as the sun rose, bathing the city in pale orange light. His head ached, and his heart was heavier still. He dumped the last of the wine down the drain and watched it swirl away. The gesture felt worthless, but it may be a start. He considered calling her, apologizing and explaining, but he did not. Sometimes quiet communicated more than words could. Taylor sat in her office that morning, staring at a photograph of herself and her children on her desk. She wanted to believe she had done the right thing by maintaining boundaries and protecting them both. But something didn't feel right. Seemed like a loss. Outside her window, meetings, laughter, and life continued. But within there was just silence. She went for her phone many times, typed Deacon's name before deleting it. By dusk she eventually said to the empty room, "I'm sorry." Neither of them realized the other had said the same thing at about the same time. Deacon, looking out at the harbor, speaking into the wind, "I'm sorry too. Love wasn't always about spectacular gestures or happy endings. Sometimes it was about two shattered souls crossing paths, teaching each other how to mend, and then walking away before they broke each other even worse. And as the city lights flickered that night, they sat alone, remembering the warmth of what may have been and mourning the silence of what would never be. Taylor's office was her haven, a setting filled with soothing creams and muted blues that reflected her serene, controlled personality. But there was nothing tranquil about this situation. The man's hand gently rested on her back, his fingers tracing slow, soothing circles. Deacon's gaze narrowed, looking for clues. Who was this guy? Why did Taylor become so emotional? Was it a betrayal or something else entirely? His mind raced, bringing back every doubt and insecurity he'd attempted to bury since he and Taylor began this fragile, hopeful relationship. He took a step back, allowing the door to close quietly, still clutching the roses in his hand. The corridor felt colder than it had seconds before, and the air was heavy with the weight of what he had just seen. He slumped against the wall, attempting to catch his breath, but the image of Taylor in that stranger's arms remained in his head. He didn't want to leap to conclusions. God knows he'd done that enough in his life, and it had cost him dearly, but the pain was already there, raw and merciless. Deacon had always understood. He was an unusual opponent for Taylor. She was elegant and graceful, a woman who carried herself with a subtle strength that drew people in when she spoke. He was rough around the edges, a man with a long history of mistakes, attempting to fight his way into a better version of himself. They met when they were both bruised and looking for something to grasp onto. Taylor had been a lifeline for Deacon, giving him the opportunity to prove that he was more than his rap sheet and regrets. Taylor had hoped he was a safe harbor, someone who saw her not just as a therapist, mother, or forester, but as a woman with her own worries and desires. But now doubt was gnawing at him. Did he misread everything? Was he only a stopgap, a temporary relief until someone better came along? The man at her office did not appear transient. He seemed to belong there, as if he knew Taylor in a way that Deacon never could. He did not leave, even if he wanted to. Instead, he slid down the wall and sat on the floor with the roses resting on his knees. He would wait. He'd address her, not in anger, but with the facts he needed to hear, no matter how painful. Walking away without knowing was not an option. Taylor disagrees. Not after all. Taylor backed away from the man's embrace and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her voice full of sorrow. "I didn't expect to fall apart like this." James smiled softly, his eyes compassionate yet sorrowful. "You do not need to apologize, Taylor. I'm the one who appeared out of nowhere." She chuckled, a faint broken sound. "It's been what, 10 years? More? And you walk in here like nothing has happened." James shrugged, his hands going into his pockets. "Time does not erase anything. Not the best thing." Taylor nodded, her gaze drawn to the window, where the Los Angeles skyline shimmered in the dim light. "I never thought I'd see you again," she said. "After everything. I thought you'd moved on." "I tried," James murmured quietly. "But some things stay with you. Some people." Deacon couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could feel it through the closed door. He stood up, brushed off his jeans, and paced the corridor, the roses now a heavy load. He wanted to burst in and demand answers, but Taylor deserved more. She'd always been the one to calm him down and remind him that love was not about possession or control. It was about trust. And right now his faith was hanging by a thread. Taylor sat at the edge of her desk, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Why now, James?" she asked. "Why return after all this time?" James paused, his jaw stiffening. "I heard about Ridge," he admitted finally. "This is about the divorce." Taylor's face relaxed yet still showed agony. "You didn't need to go all this way to check on me. I am fine. Or at least I'm attempting to be." "You don't look well," James murmured softly. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." She moaned, her shoulders dropping. "It has been a difficult year. Ridge and I tried to make it work. You know? For the children and the entire family. However, love isn't always enough. Sometimes you have to let go, even if it feels like you're losing a part of yourself." James took a step forward, his hand lingering near her arm before deciding against it. "I know what that's like," he replied. "Losing you was the hardest thing I ever did," Taylor said, evoking memories from their past. James had been her first love, long before Ridge and the turmoil of Forrester Creations took over her life. They had been young, irresponsible, and full of hopes that had not weathered the harsh realities of life. He'd left her not because he wanted to, but because life had taken them in different paths. And now he was standing in her office, reawakening memories she buried deep. "I'm not that girl anymore," Taylor admitted gently. "I have changed. You have changed." "Maybe," James replied, "but I can still see her in you." The Taylor who believed in second chances and recognized the good in others, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. Outside, Deacon paused his pacing. He could not take it anymore. He pulled the door open, and the roses fell on the floor as he walked inside. "Taylor," he whispered, his voice harsh yet firm. "What is going on?" Taylor's eyes widened, and her hand sprang to her chest. "Deacon, how long have you been here?" "Long enough," he remarked, his gaze shifting to James. "Who is this?" James straightened, his face guarded but not aggressive. "I am James. Taylor has an old friend." "Friend," Deacon repeated, the word sounding harsh. "It looked like more than that from where I was standing." Taylor took a step forward, her palms up as if to quell the tempest. "Deacon, it's not as you imagine. James and I have a long history together. He merely came to check on me." "Check on you?" Deacon's voice was low, but there was an edge to it, a pain he couldn't conceal. "You do not owe me an explanation, Taylor. I thought we were building something. Was I wrong?" Taylor's eyes welled with tears and she shook her head. "You were not mistaken. Deacon, you mean a lot to me. This James showing up is not about us. It's about my history, things I need to leave behind." James cleared his throat, sensing the tension. "I should go," he said. "Taylor, I didn't mean to cause any trouble." "You're not," she replied quickly, but her gaze remained fixed on Deacon. "Please just give me a moment," James said, nodding and throwing a suspicious look at Deacon before leaving the office. The door snapped shut behind him, leaving Taylor and Deacon alone in the thick silence. "I'm sorry you saw that," Taylor murmured, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean for you to think." "What should I think?" Deacon interjected, his hands clenched at his sides. "When I walk in, you're in some guy's arms, crying as if your heart is breaking. What does this say about us, Taylor?" "About me? It says I'm human," she replied, her voice rising. "It means I have a past same as you have. James was in my life a long time ago. He came back because he heard about my divorce and wanted to make sure I was okay. That's it." Deacon ran a hand through his hair, his fury battling his need to believe her. "I want to trust you," he said. "I do. But I have been burned before, Taylor. I've been the guy who is left behind, the one who isn't enough." Taylor softened her expression and came forward, grabbing for his hand. "Deacon, you're enough. You have always been enough. What you witnessed was not about love or treachery. It was about saying goodbye to a part of my life that I thought I'd already let go of." He stared down at her hand in his, the warmth of her touch grounding him despite his sadness. "So why do I feel like I'm losing you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're not," she declared vehemently. "I am right here. I've chosen you. But, Deacon, I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I am not leaving." He wanted to trust her. He wanted more than anything. But the image of her with James persisted, like a fissure in the foundation they'd been creating. He drew his hand away, not out of anger, but because he wanted room to ponder and digest. "I need some time," he admitted finally. "I am not going away, Taylor. But I have to see if I can do it. Whether I can be the guy who doesn't let his history ruin what we have." Taylor's eyes glistened, but she nodded. "Take all the time you need," she urged. "I'll be here." As he turned to leave, the flowers remained scattered on the floor, a somber reminder of the moment that crushed his heart. As he walked out of Forrester Creations, the Los Angeles skyline blurred before him, not because of the city's haze, but because of the tears he refused to shed.